Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of All Knicked Up. It is September 13th, 2023. Can't believe every time I say 2023, I can't believe it's actually 2023. But anyway, it is. We were off last week. We were not here. Life stuff happens, and we all have other things we need to do, so we apologize for that. But we are back this week. And we're going to try and bring you all the latest that's going on with the New York Knicks like we always do. And I'm a little bit of depression right now, but we'll get into it in more detail in a couple of seconds. So let me bring in Ty and Joe real quick. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Trying to offer some support today.
Man, I feel
Dude, it has been a rough couple. It's been a rough 36 hours, I guess, probably a better way to put it. But hey, that's life, man. And football is a very unforgiving game. I mean, Joe, you know that as well as I do.
I'm just a sympathizer right now. It was so sad that I'm not a football fan whatsoever. So this is funny wearing the hat, but I do own New York gear. I'm a New Yorker, so I'm going to support Jets, Giants, whatever. I guess Buffalo somewhere in there with their wings or whatever. But never mind about that. But I felt bad for you guys. That was the first time I was like, damn, am I watching the New York football Knicks? I mean, this is a lot that the damn Knicks have. And I'm like, I felt some sort of way. I felt an emotional attachment to the Jets. I said, you know what? Damn, I tuned in for the one game because it's Monday, Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, this has to be, one for the books to watch. And the crowd is electric and everything. And I'm like, man, I might watch some more football. When the New York thing happened. And I said, well, damn if this is not the Knicks. The colors were just green. So today, this was my ode to Eric and John and all the faithful New York Jets. I'm repping you guys today because you guys were in my heart. So
it's also the Falcons. And I knew from experience, I wanted to reach out, man. I really did, but I knew maybe wait a day or two, let it soften a little bit beforehand until I reach out. Like, Eric, I am so sorry.
I mean, being a fan of this team, you get used to stuff like this. So, I mean, the crazy thing is, and we're not going to spend too much time on this, guys, but the crazy thing is, this isn't the first time this has happened, where Jets quarterback has blown his Achilles in the first game of the season. This happened to Vinny Testaverde in 1999. Same type of thing. The Jets were coming off of a AFC Championship game appearance against Denver. They had all this talent. Everyone thought it was going to be their year. He got to the second quarter at least. He made it through the first quarter, got to the second quarter, and it happened. But yeah, this is not the first time this has happened. So being a fan of the Jets, you kind of get numb to this stuff. It's even worse. Like, the Knicks have at least made the finals in my lifetime, and yeah, they didn't win, but they've been there. I've seen them at least get have a chance to win a championship. I've never seen the Jets even, get to the Super Bowl. So, obviously this season it doesn't appear it's going to happen. It probably won't, obviously, but I mean, I'm going to Dallas this weekend. I had plans to go to watch the Jets and the Cowboys. I'm still going. I'll be there this weekend with my friends to watch the game. And I mean, Dallas looked fantastic against the Giants on Sunday, so I'm very worried about what's going to happen. But
they'll ruin
yeah,
this. They'll ruin this game. They're par for the course too.
yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, I have what's it called? I know I'll have lots of alcohol and stuff to numb the pain. So I'll be there on Sunday to enjoy
the Jets' defense was good. I mean, I'm not a big football fan, but they knocked the snot out of people. So I mean, that's hey, as long as you can play defense in that league, you got a shot, even if it's an ugly game, because you can always make the game ugly. You know,
that's what they have to do. They got to run the ball, keep it ugly, keep it low scoring.
Do a Tennessee Titans style.
Hopefully Wilson can make a couple of throws when they need him to make them and try and win that way. That's the only way they're gonna win now. So we'll see. But this is not a football show, so we won't spend too much more time on it. This is, of course, a basketball show with another team that does things like this too. So, I mean, I immediately thought of Antonio McDyess. Like, things like that came into my head when I'm like, what else? What more do I have to live through with my sports teams?
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. After what I watched on Monday, I'm like, I'd just turn off and burn all my gear. I wouldn't. There's no way I could be a fan of franchises.
No, I actually went out and I had bought a Garrett Wilson jersey, so I did the opposite. I didn't burn gear. I bought something else.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah, I'm crazy. I'm crazy when it comes to, you keep coming back, right? It's crazy mentality, but we do it here.
Yes.
So the life of a fanatic. So we do it here. So let's Joe, you were on vacation. So how was that?
Nice.
How was your vacation?
The first 6 days was great, and the last 2 days was mishap after mishap after mishap. It would take probably 15 minutes of the show to explain all of that, so I'm going to opt out.
Okay.
I'll tell you guys offline what happened, but I was in Prague, in the Czech Republic. Beautiful city, magnificent place. If you ever have the inclination to go, I highly recommend it to all of you viewers out there.
Yeah, I have a friend who teaches there. He's taught there his whole life. I've still never gone there to visit, but I do have a friend who teaches there, and
I think I'm still digesting the food, though.
Yeah,
like this heavy kind of food, dumplings.
It's kind of like German food. Yeah.
It's similar to German food, so you probably like it.
I probably would, and I do like it. So, yeah, I probably would. I probably have a good time there. But that's good that you got away, right? You got to decompress, and hopefully you had a good little break from here. You know how life is getting. I know how life is getting. So, all right. Well, also on the world stage, we just got through the World Cup of basketball, where sadly enough, the United States did not even medal. They finished in fourth. They lost to Germany in the semifinals, and then they lost to Canada in the third place game. So Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart really didn't have a great World Cup. They were okay. Brunson played all right. I didn't really like the decisions that Kerr made, which was crazy because I think he's a very good coach, but I don't think he coached this team well. They got some really poor performances, specifically from Jaren Jackson Jr., who, he was their starting center. He averaged like 3 rebounds. You're not gonna win games against these teams. Rebound and anybody, but specifically these type of teams, averaging 3 rebounds a game. They became over-reliant on Anthony Edwards. I thought he did a lot of ISO ball, which in Olympic basketball, even Carmelo Anthony knew you can't ISO all the time. They got caught with doing that as well. So yeah, I didn't watch every game religiously, but I watched enough of each one to get an idea. So from a Knicks perspective, like I said, we had 3 players in it. The American 2 were underwhelming. And RJ Barrett in that third place game, he was fantastic. It's similar to the playoffs. Like the last game against Miami wasn't good, but the games before that he was good. This game, he had one bad game in the medal round, and then the last two he was fantastic. So, take it for what it's worth. I wouldn't read too much into it. With RG, you just like to see the confidence, though. You just make sure he maintains that confidence going forward, and hopefully he can apply it to the season. But Ty, I know you had spoken the whole time about having issues with how the roster was constructed, and I mean, it pretty much came out to fruition what you said. So, speak on that for a little bit.
The whole time since the practice began, I've looked at the team. I think the thing is that most people probably look at the fact that we didn't have big names, and that's always the thing about USA basketball now, since the Dream Team came in and, kind of just solidified the U.S. dominance over the sport at that particular year. That was a team of Hall of Famers. It might have been the best team assembled ever in sports, not just basketball. And I think the thing is that it's automatically a checkbox now when the U.S. goes overseas. They're like, oh, well, the Dream Team. Well, you're more Christopher Williams dreaming. If anybody knows that song, you're more dreaming than anything because you're not going to win some of these games now moving forward because I don't feel like the U.S. now is breeding stars. I think they are breeding AAU, teams. I think that's what the dynamic has been. You're joining your best friend and you're going out and you're hooping on the same team and you like each other and you're going out doing all the fun things together. And then, hey, you're friends with that guy too? Well, why don't he come and join us also? So everybody's nightclubbing it now. Basically you're hanging out as your best friends and you're on the same job. I think that kind of takes away the idea of needing to be a loner or being that solo star that says, hey, look, I play for the Atlanta Hawks and, I'm going to be like Dominique. I'm going to go compete against some of the best talent as the best player on my team because I believe by myself I can help my team win a championship without the help of others. I think that mental dynamic has kind of softened the U.S. athlete who's so now dependent also on the three ball, and the lack of the fundamental game is completely annihilated from U.S. basketball. We see it a lot with the Europeans, but we see nothing with the U.S. You take a guy like who you're just talking about from Minnesota, Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, great individual player, but horrible shot selector. He thinks he's going to go, do it all by himself. And he couldn't even do it all in Alabama when he played there. So let alone you're not going to do it on the world stage. Just looking at when this team was first put together and watching the dynamic, and I said, these guys are way too short. That was the first thing I noticed. I said, they're also inexperienced. You're asking Banchero, you're asking Triple J, you're asking those guys to come out and be world beaters. And as fantastic as they are as talents, they're not developed that well yet still as NBA players. So you got guys that are professional basketball players probably most of their lives that are playing overseas. So, they also play together a ton. So you've got already the chemistry in place for those teams. You have the desire to always want to beat the U.S. And a lot of these guys are basically, for the U.S., are taking their summers off to play basketball. They're like, oh, you want me to come play? Oh, I'm going to get this extra pickup game in. It's not, Rudy Gay mentioned about the pride of the game. Maybe there is a lack of that this becomes just another, oh, we're just going to go get another medal. We're going to go get the gold medal as a team because we're the U.S. These guys got something to prove throughout the world that they're the better competition. We had a track athlete come out from the team from U.S. speaking about world competition, and how it's not really a world competition when you're just basically playing the U.S. and against its own players. And I'm on sure the world probably felt a lot more like that guy, what he was saying. We hear Giannis now come out and say he wanted to back him for what he said because he too believes that the United States is not playing the world. I'm not shocked. Eric, I talked about it beforehand. I said I had concerns about the roster build, not about the talent. It's just the roster build. I just felt like, you needed big games from the guy who they missed probably the most was Brandon Ingram because his game would have been great. He has that great mid-range game. the ability to pull up over, the smaller guys and just get anywhere he wanted to on the court. It is a mid-range game when you get to that level of FIBA ball. And we've watched great players, Tim Duncan, we watch Allen Iverson, we watch all these great talents come in and struggle to play the international game. You're not selling calls here. You're not getting favorable calls that we get in the U.S. We travel a lot in the U.S. People always say, oh, they tiki and about, the world is not as good. But the one thing, and I'm going to give credit to Eric, he was talking about Canada's first loss, and he says, albeit they lost, he felt like they would play better throughout the rest of the tournament, and they would surprise people, and they did. True to form, they exactly did that. Why? Because they got international players. They play in the U.S., but people forget Shea, Canadian, RJ, Canadian. All these guys, they've been. This is their form of their hoop hype or their hoop dream is playing for their national team. And the U.S. is playing all kind of AAU basketball, and then collegiate basketball. Then you're playing all over the place, but these guys are bred from day one to be professionals, and they played against men. Boys played against men, thus, ascending into that role themselves as the role models that will eventually play against people that are younger than them. They set the plate that way. So, not shocked. We needed Paolo Banchero to be a star, and he's not ready to fill those shoes yet. Anthony Edwards is just too erratic. He doesn't have the mental game. He has the talent, but he doesn't have the mental game. And then we're asking a guy like Jalen Brunson, who we love as a Knick. We think he's absolutely, incredible. But in the same sense, we know that he has some shortcomings. His height, for one thing, is a shortcoming. His defense is also a shortcoming. Yeah. And we're asking this guy to come out and be one of the best players in the world and dominate international basketball. And I hate to break the bubble. Even LeBron's not going to come out at this stage and dominate like people think. They think these guys are going to roll out and roll over because LeBron James now is saying, I want to be in the Olympics. It took a heroic Melo to play to win the last time. It took a heroic KD to win an international competition the last time also. You got these guys that are phenomenal players, but they had to have outstanding sequences of games in order for the U.S. to win. There's not one Carmelo and there's not one KD on this team that just played.
Yeah, you brought up defense, which I think was a pretty glaring thing I noticed in the World Cup. Now, international players aren't known to being great individual defenders, except maybe like Andrei Kirilenko. Certain guys in history have been fantastic defensive players, but for the most part, they get the label that they're not great individual defenders, which is true. But when they're on these teams, they play very good team defense. Everybody knows what the other guy's doing. They're always in the right position. That's something I noticed. So, Joe, what did you think? I don't know how much you saw of the World Cup, but what did you when you saw like them starting to go at guys like Austin Reeves and Jalen Brunson, and they're starting to target what we would do here? These international teams started doing that. What did you think of that?
Okay, that's not necessarily something I was focused on when I was watching it. Full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of the international game. It's hard for me really to kind of get up for that. I did catch a couple of games. Mostly my interest was in checking out Rokas Jokubaitis. Am I pronouncing that right?
It's close enough.
Sure.
Really kind of checking out RJ during it. What I did see was a team that was disjointed. It did not seem to be all firing on the same cylinders. And it was interesting. You mentioned Brandon Ingram. He looked detached when I was watching him play. And a couple of days later, he came out and expressed the frustration verbally about not really understanding his role on the team and what was going on with it. And I saw a lot of Anthony Edwards, like a lot of Anthony Edwards. But again, I think more for the sake of having something to discuss, I watched some of the games, but I've never really been a big fan of international play, Olympics. Maybe there's an ignorance that I have where I'm like, what do you mean we're losing to Serbia? how can that possibly happen? What is going on here?
Yeah.
And seeing guys like Dennis Schroeder, absolutely light it up, where in the NBA, he'll be lucky if he starts for Toronto. He'll start for Toronto because there's no one else really to play the point for them. But again, it was not an enjoyable watch for me. I watched 2 games and I was just kind of partially interested. I'll be completely 100% honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough for me. Like I said, I didn't watch all of the games. Obviously, the time difference, they were played in the Philippines, so there was a huge time difference for us here having to watch these games. A lot of them were very early in the morning, where, we're just not either awake or we're just like, for me, sometimes my dog gets me up. So sometimes I'll get up with her and then I'd have my phone and be like, oh, the game's on. So I'd turn it on while I'm trying to go back to sleep. I would turn on the game and watch a little bit of the game. And yeah, like it's very this team was very hard to like, I guess is the best way for me to put it. And we had Brunson was on it, so I was happy about that. And we had Knicks on this team, and they were just very hard to like. And when they played it in the beginning, I thought they were playing much more of a team-oriented game. And then as time went on, they started to revert to their old familiar ways, right? Like they weren't playing the same style of basketball. And maybe that's what was the issue with Brandon Ingram. Like maybe he was expecting to have more of a team-oriented pass the ball, and when that wasn't happening, he didn't know how to fit in. He didn't know where to find his place. I don't know, but it was eye-opening again that they didn't meddle. The game against Germany, they hit so many freaking shots. Like they hit so many big-time threes, and they were just crazy making shots. Which it's funny because that's what the NBA is too now, right? Like it's a 3-point league. So you would think that they'd be able to adjust. They just didn't. And Ty, you're right. Like LeBron came out and said, oh, I want to play in the Olympics, which is next year. The Olympics are next year. LeBron said he wants to play. He wants to get Durant to play and Steph Curry to play. And yeah, I mean, if we send our best, I'm not going to say we're going to win, but we should win, right? Like we should be expected to win if we send our best team there. But hey, we lost. 2004, we got the bronze medal. I mean,
I still find it hard to conceive that can actually happen. I know it's a different
I agree. Game. It's a completely that's the thing. It's a completely different style of basketball, and it's weird. Like I brought this up the other day when we were discussing it in the group. We used to have like when Colangelo took over, he said, I need a 4-year commitment from you guys. And they would have a camp every summer where they would play, and Coach K would take them through the steps of international basketball. And these guys committed for 4 years, and they would play with the Redeem team. And once they got to the Olympics, they were ready. They were ready, and they knew what was expected of them. And I think we kind of lost that. Now, I don't know if you should never send a team anywhere internationally if you don't want to win. And I know this was the World Cup. It wasn't the Olympics. So maybe some guys are like, yeah, whatever. It's not that important because the Olympics are the things that the thing everyone wants to win, for these events. But man, when you're supposed to be the best at something, when you're looked at as the pinnacle of a sport. And I mean, if you lose in the gold medal game, that's one thing, but you don't even get there. Like, to me, that's problematic. So I don't know what's going to happen going forward with the Team USA. I think they need to go back, like I said, to the camp style. Make sure you get a guy and mix it up with a pool. They used to have a pool of like 30 players, and then they would just pull certain guys for certain events, and they all were learning. So like you could do that if you have the 30 players, you have 15 for say the World Cup, and the 15 for the Olympics, and then mix it up that way. I don't know, but it is kind of strange that we're still having these issues.
I think it's let me just drive it real home because I think we've been a little too nice sometimes with our basketball. The game sucks. Let's just put it right where it is. The NBA game sucks. As much as we have the great talent, the core talent. Yes, guys that jump out the gym, yes, we've got those. I can give you all the boxes we can check. The most powerful, strong, athletic people, we have all of those things. But what has happened over the last 20 years? We've had our best players make a mockery of the game, and they've basically dropped their drawers and took a big crap in the middle of the NBA symbol that what used to be Jerry West, and they have made a clown circus of the game. You can go from LeBron to Harden to anyone else with these goofy step back travel moves that are just nowhere in the rule book of basketball. If you were a fan of this game past 20 years before, if you're prior to a fan prior to 20 years ago, a fan, meaning if you're in the 50 club like me, or you're in the late 40 club or the mid 40 club, or maybe the late 30 club, you watched some really good basketball at some point. And then to look at what we've been watching over the last 20 years has been a piece of garbage. So when you're asking these guys, we can't get dudes to box out. They don't box out in basketball anymore. God forbid you do an outlet pass. Oh, what is that? God forbid you can do a 3-man weave and end up in a layup line. Everybody, what they do, they shoot the corners. They live outside the arc. Jalen Brunson, to his credit, is one of the best post players in the league, and he's one of the shortest guys. He's one of the few with fundamental footwork that can post up a player. We are a hot waste management garbage in the middle of August in New York City truck of an NBA team. That's the league. The league is garbage. The guy, and I've been saying this for a long time, and shout out to anybody who wants to challenge. The best players in the NBA right now are not American. They are not American.
Sure.
They may speak the language, but they're not American. And they're killing those guys that are in the league because they can't guard them. We talk about defense. I always bring back to one dude, Luka Doncic, proved that the Americans' defense don't matter anymore. The year that Dallas played the Clippers, Luka lit up the best 2 perimeter defenders at that time, which was Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. They couldn't stop him. If you have those 2 guys on your team, on any other team, you say, oh, they're stopping whoever you put them on. If those guys, that's like Jordan and Pippen. You know, back in the days, once they locked you up and they sought out Tony Kukoc, they ruined his life. That was the same thing you would have thought would happen to Luka, but Luka knew the fundamentals of the game, and he was out thinking those players. The American game is terrible because the IQ is low and the fundamentals are low. You see guys spend all summer long taping videos at the Black Ops. What is it? Dunks and 3-point shots. Does anybody know how to find a cutter? We don't find them in New York, you know, unless it's cutting music like a DJ. In the Knicks, nobody's cutting on the Knicks. The kind of cutting that's getting done there is probably if they pulled out an actual knife and cut somebody, because they don't know how to back cut. They don't know how to run a pick and roll. They don't know how to defend a pick and roll. So what got exposed was the fact that the NBA is just terrible basketball right now. It's not good. It's just a bunch of glamorous dunks and 3-point shots and a lot of celebrating celebrating your self-belief greatness and doing all these jiggy moves down the court. Who would you like really when you think about doing a franchise nowadays? If you said, I want to put a guy as my center or as the core of my team who has great fundamentals and is going to be able to make everyone else better around. The people you say that about now are 2 European guys. Jokic, and he's got a ring for it, and probably Doncic if he calms down and stops hoisting that hero ball. The rest of the guys, Giannis is one of the worst fundamental guys you can watch play. Hate to say it. He is. He's one of the better players in the league, if not the best. He still has fundamental flaws. LeBron can't do a pull-up jump shot. He has a mid-range game. Melo and Durant are your 2 guys still, and one is retired, that have probably the best footwork and fundamentals, definitely offensively in the whole NBA.
Yeah, and Brunson, you mentioned him, but yeah,
and Brunson, we suck. Well, not me, but
no, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
The game has become the game right now for entertainment value, and I have to admit, honestly, when compared to the basketball of the 90s, where we all come from, more or less, I despise it. But I'd still rather watch it than international ball. It's like watching the Spurs play the Spurs, play the Spurs, play the Spurs all day long. And I love the Spurs. They were great and everything like that, but I wouldn't want to watch 82 games of the Spurs. You know, it's not what I loved about the league, but I have to tell you, man, also watching the international game, it's hard for me. It's boring. I'm sorry, it is. I know I should appreciate the art to it and the artfulness of the game and all of that stuff, but I start flipping channels after a little while.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean the athleticism. It's not as an athletic a league, so
No,
you're right. It's not as entertaining.
No, it's not.
Yeah, and
But-
if that's what you're watching for. Yeah, I agree.
I'm not saying I'm watching for entertainment necessarily, and I think that has hurt the game. So I agree with Ty on that, definitely. But you want it to be somewhat entertaining. I think the 90s had like a good balance of that personally. But again, I'm just
Well, our
not saying
team was
the
good
international
too.
game.
So
Yeah,
and our team was good in the 90s. So
Yeah, it
when
was.
your team is good, you can let the dirty and ugliness of things go because you want to win. All right,
Yeah,
so let's move
definitely.
on. We could talk. This is something we could talk about for hours and hours because it's a topic that you literally could discuss. The pros, cons, the good things about the international game, the bad things. We could talk about this for hours, but we only have a short time, so let's keep going. So one of the things we've been talking about, and a guy we talk about a lot is Emmanuel Quickly, and he's up for an extension, as we know, and there's been some talk surrounding him recently. So at first, it was reported that he might be looking for, or that he's looking for Jalen Brunson money, that kind of a contract. Now, I think that's a little crazy if you're asking me. Even that we say Brunson right now is a bargain, right? Like what we got from him is a bargain. So, but even at the bargain price, I think that's a little bit crazy for Emmanuel Quickly. So apparently no deal is imminent. And apparently no substantial talks have happened, according to Sean Devaney and Ian Begley. They said that nothing is imminent. The Knicks really haven't had serious talks about any kind of extension. But he's looking for about 4 years, $100 million. And I think that's nuts. So I don't want the Knicks to pay him. I think the longer this goes on, that we don't hear of an extension or even talks happening, I think they're resigned to say, you're not as good as Brunson. And if that's what you're putting out there, there's no conversation to be had. No. That's my opinion. So, Joe, what do you think about when you heard about this news? First of all, what did you think? And what do you think he's worth?
I think he's probably going to wind up getting 480, but it's not going to be here. I think that's what he's going to get. I don't think he's getting a 5-year extension. I don't think he's getting $100 million. Someone's going to give him 480. Josh Hart type money. I think he's going to wind up with something like that. I don't think it's going to be here. I don't think it's going to be here. And I don't think necessarily, and I said this before in a couple of other shows, with the roster that we have right now, I don't think he wants it to be here because he's not getting minutes at the 2. What are we going to pay that money for a backup point guard? I mean, I don't see where he fits, especially if we're dealing with a 9-man rotation.
That's fair.
And we've all talked about this. The great fear is we're going to wait too long on this. The trade isn't going to come through. It's going to be at the trade deadline. He's only going to be in contract for a couple of more months. No one's giving up a first-round pick for him, and we mismanaged another asset. That's really kind of the great fear. They could bide their time and wait to do a sign and trade in the offseason next year when he's restricted. But, risk, being cautious as a general manager is good, but at the expense of progress and doing things in a timely manner. And I have concerns about this whole situation. I have a feeling we're going to be having the Obi conversation a little bit later, man. I do.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a fit here. I'm not a huge fan of his as a player. He is talented, but I'm thinking 4 at 80. Someone's going to give it to him.
Right. So yeah, that would be obviously if he got that this year, it'd have to, and we're not giving it to him. It'd either be an assignment trade or trade, and then the team gives him a 4 and 80 that he goes to. Ty, we've talked about this, but we've never actually put any names to it, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. What kind of a package do you think he would garner from another team?
Oh, that's a very good question. Wow.
I mean, think about, we know Toronto, right, needs a guard. So you could start there if you want to. I'll help you out since I think that.
No, we suing them. I didn't even go to them. We at war now. That's not happening. Oh man, that New York Nets is gonna be a mother sucker. You know that.
Yeah.
When I was listening to Joe talk, I was thinking San Antonio was another,
There.
Pop might choke him to death, but the kind of team that needs a young budding guard, and imagine the in between post, when they go to Pop and he's probably screwed up some play Pop or hand. I can only imagine what that would sound like. But when thinking about a guy like Wembanyama, they need someone to kind of cultivate something there, to be a leader. I think Emmanuel Quickly probably could offer that to San Antonio, because I have a bias about Emmanuel Quickly because the guy that I look at all the time is the one that was hoisting all those ridiculous 3-point shots, and I just soured on him so much after watching that, and I know that's partly his fault, definitely a lot more Tom Thibodeau's fault in allowing that mindset to kind of sink in. But lo and behold, we saw him come around in certain stretches of the season where he looked like a very competent player, and we look like, wow, we could see some of the talent there if he can hone it. I just don't think that happens here. I just don't think it happens here. But I'm like thinking about teams that would need that type of guard. Maybe Chicago. Chicago might be a team that needs it with Lonzo Ball being out. San Antonio, like I mentioned. Perhaps the glut of guards that's in Orlando. Could he go there and the Knicks could get back someone else in a package that won't require that many minutes? Maybe a Cole Anthony. Not because I want him. I'm just mentioning names, just floating out. He's really not my type of dude either. But I'm just thinking you're going to get probably a late first-round pick for him, and maybe a future a player that someone else feels like they may not have no use for, but then the Knicks could maybe. I mean, the smart move would be to get a veteran small forward that's willing to play backup and a first-round pick. That would be the ideal package you would want. Someone to either relieve RJ or relieve Randall. Could be a tweener, could be a hybrid small forward, power forward. To me, that would make sense if you're going to get rid of a guard. I think adding another guard just would make absolutely. But it would be the Knicks thing to do is to add another guard after getting rid of a guard. But I think you do have to somewhere start preparing a little bit for Julius's exit. I know people may think that's far down the line, but we're talking about another 2 years. You're eventually going to need someone to place either backup power forward or small forward. I think you need to start filling that in. And Emmanuel Quickly, I think, has definitely a late first value, and I think he definitely could command to bring back a player probably making $20 million a year that's a vet. I don't know. I mean, OG would be the absolute answer.
Yeah.
For the Knicks, it would be a no-brainer if you're trading him to Toronto. You just said, send us OG, who's not trying to re-sign with you anyway. Maybe we can re-sign him. He serves a purpose. in New York. He would be a small forward, but I just got this feeling that they're going to extend that dude. I hate thinking that way, but it's just a very Nick thing to do. That they have this blind loyalty to their players.
Yep.
Like, we saw Julius, and I understand Julius getting the extension. I think it was just premature how he got it. But just
Right.
after the playoffs, I think you could have waited that year and pick up the player option. He would have made more money here anyway, and then extend him and say, hey, right in the middle of the option, we're going to extend you. And they could have done that, and it would have still been no harm, no foul. Because he wasn't going out in the free agency after that playoff bust and come out and somebody talking about a lot of money. They did the same evaluation that every fan did. Was like
he took a friendly deal, though, man. He took a friendly deal.
But I think he would have had to anyway. I don't think no one was going to pay him upwards of what the Knicks paid him. I think everybody else in the league recognized that playoff was Julius. Like, they knew that was the dude that people probably around the league knew he was like that. It's just he got exposed in the playoffs on the biggest stage in New York. Mm-hmm. I don't think that somebody would have gave him a bigger deal than the Knicks gave him. And I think he knew he had to take a discount because he goes out into foreign land. They're gonna really slap him with a reality twig and say, dude, you're not that dude. We'll give you this amount of money. Like, I don't think he was ever a threat to be – I don't think nobody's coming to take him from the Knicks. But this is the knee jerk that's always the Knicks. I think the Knicks always outbid themselves. That's part of the issue. Or underbid in the case of Obi. They just give away talent because they're just confused at the deadline and they get nervous and they do knee jerk reactions. I'm just believing that Quickly is beloved by this coach. He's beloved. I'm having a hard time seeing Quickly get a pink slip. He should have gotten a pink slip by now, but I'm just saying that the loyalty, this nepotism, should worry Knicks fans. The best move is that if you were thinking about it, Quickly should be gone by now. This shouldn't even make it to camp. If this makes it to camp, pencil him to be extended as far as I'm concerned, because I think he should be gone now. The OG Anunoby, and they supposedly had a deal in place. It wasn't for OG. This is as for Fred Katz. He said they had a deal for him for a young vet.
Yeah.
That they were looking to trade him, and the Knicks didn't do it.
Yeah, that sounds like OG, right? That sounds like it would have. That's the guy it probably would have been.
They said it, but he said it wasn't OG. He said it wasn't. It was another.
Yeah.
It was another
a young veteran.
Because he said the misguided thought is that the Knicks were trying to get an old vet for him, and he says no. This is a very high quality vet.
Yeah, I remember that.
Wanted, and that it was not OG Anunoby. He said that he's really never been linked to that deal. It was some guy, but he clearly would not reveal. But he said that it was a vet, but not in vet in the sense of someone that was 15 to 20 years in the league. So I mean that kind of makes it still makes you curious as to who the hell they were even after.
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Off the cuff, that I'm like, that dude. What dude? Who was that?
We always kind of slant our thoughts that if the Knicks are doing something, they're going to screw it up. So, so that's just us. That's the Jets, Mets thinking that we have when it comes to the Knicks. Joe, go ahead. You were going to say something.
If they love him so much, why did they make the rest of the decisions that they did with him? Again, why did they bring on another shooting guard? If you're going to pay somebody $20+ million a year and he's not going to start, he better be backing up two positions. And like seriously, a 33-minute rotation player. That's not going to happen this year. He's not getting that kind of minutes.
Well, you could ask the same question as to you brought in Josh Hart and then you bring in Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah. Now, granted, DiVincenzo's a better outside shooter. But you're still bringing in redundant two-way, and you have Q Grimes, who's the same type of player. So see, this is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, and why are you making those decisions if you love him so much?
Well, why are you not getting rid of him if you don't love him? This is the question. It's like, why? Because you're starting to get to that point where he came off the 6-man second, his run up to the 6-man of the year. That would have been the time to say, look, package this dude up because we're going to go after Dante.
Let's see.
We're going to sign Hart. He's got to go.
They're waiting for a deal that isn't there.
But it's Julius all over again because he had a crappy playoffs. Quickly had a crappy playoffs.
Yes.
Just like Julius had a crappy playoffs.
It's just
So it's literally history repeating itself so quick. I hate, no pun intended, but so quick after it happened. Just with Randall, I agree with you guys. If they're not keeping him, if they're not extending him, they need to trade him by the trade deadline this year. He has to be off the team by the
You're going to
trade
get diminishing returns after that because anybody that's acquiring him is going to have to pay him.
And here's the kicker. Here's
So
the kicker. Like
have to
you
trade
can't trade him. His value is weird because he's almost near a second-round pick. So his contract is not huge.
Mm-hmm.
So what would make him more valuable to trade is if you had him locked in to the money he wants to be extended and then being able to trade him to someone who would be of equal value that would probably be in that tier of that young vet making 20+ million a year. Right now, what he's might be making $7 million, $8 million, maybe a little. That might be less than that.
Change.
So he's outplayed that amount of what he is. So to trade him now is going to be difficult. You're going to obviously attach Ev to him. That's who you'd have to attach. Ev and Ev with quickly in order to bring back a great solid asset. Now the question is, who wants to take Ev? So now you got a 2-for-1 deal. You're probably trying to work out. I don't know how that
lowers the value of quickly because you have to take Ev.
Yeah. So so maybe the Knicks attaching something to get rid of. See, this front office bothers me so much.
Well, he's
another asset to get rid of someone. That's crazy.
It makes no sense because this is the last off season. This is the last year you're going to have him on the Bucks. It makes no sense to do that at this point with Evan Fournier because it's not like you could take that money and parlay it into free agency and do something with it. It's dead money at this point, unless it's bringing by. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to give the numbers. So quickly, this year he's going to be making a 4.2 million. I'll round it up. So it's 4.2 million he's going to be making this year. But next year, his qualifying offer is for 6.1. So, and next year, if he signs the qualifying offer and he doesn't get an extension, they can't trade him. It's a poison pill. They can't trade him that year. So he's untradeable at that point. So, I think
goes on the qualifying offer though. And when's the last player you've seen really go on the qualifying offer in the 5th year?
Well, I mean, someone recently did it. They signed their Porzingis actually was the one who did it, but he was coming off injury, so that's a different thing. But he signed his QO, and then Dallas extended him the following year off after that. Yeah. But I don't know. Again, I don't know how that's going to work out. And again, if you get to a point, if you don't trade him by the deadline, you're basically and you don't extend him, then you're basically saying, okay, the qualifying offer is what he's going to get, unless they extend him in the offseason, which that's my fear is that they'll feel like they have to at that point to trade him, right? Like you feel like you have to do that at that point.
The other option they have is they could sign and trade him in that offseason for somebody that's rough against the cap.
Yep, that's true too. They could do that. But it's just I don't want to get there. Like, let's handle this.
They're going to get there. They're going to. Yeah. You know what it is? It's just when watching. I'm trying to see. I want to think differently at this age, but I'm just more cynical the older I get. I'm just trying to figure out. I mean, you're right. This is Groundhog's Day. We just need to find a groundhog and keep repeating the day because it's literally Julius all over, Obi all over. You know, this is either going to end up Obi-ish or Julius. Like, I don't see the other avenue because the Knicks, if you go back, even the lesser talented guys, I'm talking Kevin Knox, I'm talking Frank Ntilikina, I never understand why when you have teams that are interested in guys, you plan on never doing anything with. Everybody knew Frank. Frank was literally a cooked hot dog at that point. He was really a Frankfurter. He was done. And Orlando had some like of him. And your job as a Knick was to say, nah, we don't want him, but we're not going to give him to you either. And you let him go and walk for nothing. Kevin Knox the same way. Granted, I mean, actually, Kevin Knox had pretty good numbers. I was shocked that he actually was almost near 10 points in the last 20-something games. I was very shocked by that in Portland. But however, you want to get attached to an asset to get rid of him to bring in Cam Reddish.
Right.
Then you had to attach another asset to trade Cam because we love Josh Hart, so we're not going to argue about that acquisition. He's worth a late first round of Josh Hart's talent. Whatever it is, it fits and impacts winning. So nobody's mad at that. It's just more so when you look at it, it's the asset management issue with the Knicks. Yeah. Not about the talent. Yet clearly Josh Hart is a way better acquisition than both Kevin Knox or Cam Reddish. That's not even a question. This is the fact, what did you give up to get him? And now we're going into the Obi trials. We're watching a guy who was the 8th pick get traded for 2 stale Snicker bars. Now, this is where we're getting dangerous because quickly could be 1 stale Milky Way away because we're reaching into that stratosphere where he clearly has a role better than what Obi's role was. It's more defined, and we've seen him actually excel at that role to a degree where he became runner-up for 6th man of the year. So his value is very high in the league. If you had to trade him, this is the highest you could trade him at. The only thing that can happen now, if they don't trade him at his height, is they're going to trade him at a low cost because he's going to suck coming in and trying to fit in, either over trying to prove a point that he deserves money, or the team saying we paid Josh Hart and Dante, so you got to take a third role. Your minute's going to get cut, brother. You might not be finishing games anymore. So now this dude is devalued.
Yep.
They better trade him before camp. I'm just going to try to tell you because there's no way nobody in their right mind is sitting there going, man, Tom Thibodeau going to figure that out. If you said that, you're the biggest liar on the planet, or you're delusional because there's nobody on earth that would ever buy that Tom Thibodeau is going to figure out an offensive lineup. Rotation, he has too many weapons now. He has too many favorites and too many weapons. Because now, what are you doing with Quentin Grimes? What are you doing with Quentin Grimes? There's no way you're burying Quentin Grimes from Emmanuel quickly at this point. You can't I'm gonna cut his minutes. He needs more minutes if anybody does.
I really do think Josh Hart is going to play backup power forward.
Oh, that's happening. Don't even think, bro.
That is our backup power forward, guys.
It's clear already. He is the backup power.
Although, no, wait a minute. We did get some news recently. Where we saw Isaiah Hartenstein shooting threes.
Yeah.
So he might be the guy. Yeah, they showed him.
Yeah.
Ty, what did I say when you guys asked me what the hell John asked in the chat? I'm like, oh, he doesn't have Obi to screw up anymore, so now he's gonna screw up.
Yeah, he's like, come over here, iHeart. Let's kill your radio in. Let's screw up your radio station. Man.
This team gives us so much.
The Obi thing.
So much.
The Obi thing. I know people were like, "Oh, Obi didn't ball out." Like whatever you want to say about it. The dude was 8th pick. He was definitely uber talented. You should still be bothered of how they handled Obi, because that is setting a standard of what you may see in the future with other assets that are not applicable to this coach's belief system. Because the one thing that I will say about the just going back a little bit to the FIBA Cup, you saw guys that were thought to be incapable of doing certain things. We saw RJ, we saw Brunson. You know, he towards the beginning he was playing more like a point guard role. You could see that he ran a team a little bit better. And we've seen RJ, bless you, you've seen RJ be at this point now where we're like, this, you know, people saying this guy's a bust, but clearly he needs more spacing. and he needs to also have a system to play in clearly, and he needs a point guard that can get him better shots. So, who are these guys that we have on the Knicks under this coach? Is a great question to be asked because right now, if Obi goes to Indiana and blows up, if he becomes a 22-7 guy, only thing I'm going to tell you,
Go ahead, Joe.
it's going to be an uproar.
Go ahead, Joe. Oh, he's choking.
I will
Don't choke.
say this.
No harm looking now. Come on.
I will say this. A lot of this is getting brushed on the floor under the carpet because the team is playing well by a lot of people. But this is going to catch up with this team. Mismanaging Obi, mismanaging quickly. You just threw away that draft, including a lottery pick, like almost the top half of the lottery pick. This will catch up with them because all of their young talent is getting churned through this wheel of dysfunction. And then you don't have that second tier coming up of what you're going to build the team around once the 27, 28, 29-year-olds move on or get past their prime. This is going to catch up with us. The team's playing well now. Everybody's happy. I loved watching the playoffs and everything like that. But at some point, the chickens come home to roost when you start mismanaging assets like this and making these kind of decisions. It's going to be probably Obi all over again.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right, Ty. I'm thinking late first-round draft pick. And he's a better player than that.
Yeah, because he's probably more near a late lottery.
Yeah. Well, that's where he was picked in the late first round. So he was a late. So he's definitely exceeded that draft selection.
Yeah, but if you wind up with 2 second-round draft picks out of this, God, you got to be held accountable for this at some point. I know he doesn't like talking to the media and everything like this, but at some point you got to kind of answer to how you're managing your assets.
Well,
that's no, we're not talking about it.
Accountability is a really admirable attribute in people.
This is since we've been doing this show, I have talked more about that topic than I probably should have because I still can't believe that it's in 2023. Our general manager, our team president, they don't speak to the media. And the team just, because our owner has LDS. Yes, LDS. If you don't know what I'm saying, figure it out in your head. But that's why. Our owner has that. So, this is why we don't have, he doesn't let any of his people speak. And it's weird because the Rangers, their guys can talk. Seriously. The Rangers GM talks, So that's why I'm telling you, it just pisses me off. And I mean, I'm not obviously in the media, but I went, you guys know I went to broadcasting school. I learned what to do. And that's part of being in the media. And you want those conversations and you want to ask these questions. And they're our voice, right? As much as we want to hate the media, they're the ones that get us our information.
They are.
Right? No matter whether it's good or bad, they're the ones asking the questions. They're the ones that get the information. Some of the questions are stupid. Like I will admit, some of them are the most ridiculous questions I've ever heard. But there are guys who are really good at it and will press the issue and will get them to speak. And they don't get the chance. And it's because of Dolan. And I pick on him all the time. And I don't want to go down that road because you see, I'm even getting redder than I normally am because he's a topic that pisses me off. But man, anyway, I didn't want to go there. Let's talk about something that could be positive coming up maybe in a couple of years. A guy actually might want to come here. And we talked about this the last show, talked about Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, he has been pretty vocal about what he wants out of Milwaukee, what he wants to extend, to stay there. And he was recently asked about it. It was an interview with, what's the name of it? Leave 48 Minutes. I have no idea what that is. I've never watched it. Ty, I don't know if you do, or Joe, but I never watched it.
No.
All right, so this was his quote. He says, as long as we play about staying in Milwaukee, he goes, as long as we play and we approach the game the right way every single day and we sacrifice for the common goal, I can see myself being a Milwaukee Buck for the rest of my career. But the moment I feel like people are not as committed as I am to get that golden thing in the back, I'm not. I'm a Milwaukee Buck, but most importantly, I'm a winner. I want to win. And I have to do whatever it takes to win. And if there is a better situation for me to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy, I have to take that situation. Now, all of a sudden, right? Like all of a sudden, there's a bunch of teams out there that are like perking up, ears perk up, the antenna, like the bat signals in the sky. Everyone is, they're all paying attention. This guy might not want to stay in Milwaukee. And we've talked about this already. And I feel like he's done his job there. He won them a title. He did everything he has to do. Personally, he probably feels I want my next challenge as well if they don't do right by me. And I mean, we're not winning a title anytime soon. So what bigger challenge would be than coming to New York that has a big Greek population, still a big Greek population here in New York. And again, he would be, as we say about every star, if they chose to come here, they would be, and they won one title, it would be worth like 3 or 4 anywhere else, right? Like it really would do that for him. So I actually said in our group that I think he's the guy that is going to wind up here. Bill Simmons said we're going to either get Giannis, Embiid, or Mitchell. I think
Mitchell,
right?
Yep.
Those are the 3.
Bill Simmons
I think Giannis. I know he's just crazy, but I think it's going to be Giannis. I do think they're gonna find a way to get him here. Don't know what it's going to cost. Don't know any of that. But does this quote, along with everything he's been saying, change any of your minds? Do you guys where were you before, and where are you thinking now? I guess Joe, you could start.
I have no idea who it's going to be. I have to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to be Embiid. I don't think it's going to be Embiid, and I'm cool with that. I think Mitchell is a possibility, but I know it's going to be somebody at some point. It kind of has to be. Just what we were talking about before. We can't use these draft picks and actually draft young talent because they're going to go into the churn through the wheel of dysfunction, and so we have to use that for something. It's got to be somebody, but it's hard to really project who that's going to be. I'll tell you what I kind of like, and I still sit on this. I think we are going to, I think at some point, trade Julius. I think that's going to happen at some point before he's done on his contract. I think if we could do that in a reasonable time and actually go after OG Anunoby in free agency, I kind of like that. It's hard to say. It's so hard to land a big fish in this league. It's really, really hard unless they really direct themselves to you. So I don't know, man. I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you who I thought was
percentages. Give me percentages then.
Okay.
Give me percentages.
Talking about those 3 players, the most likely is Mitchell.
Okay.
The most likely is Mitchell. I'll put it at
80%.
No, I'll put it at 50% Mitchell, 30%. No, I'd go 60% Mitchell, maybe 30% Giannis, 10% Embiid. I don't think Embiid's coming here, though. I think the most likely is Mitchell coming back.
Yeah, Ty, I know you said that you think that Mitchell is coming here. I think what is your percentage on that? Because I know you're very confident that you think that's going to happen.
Oh, I think he's about 100% here. But I'm going to put this out here, and it might be a little funny how I'm doing this, but I'm going to put Giannis at 100% the Knicks also, and I'm going to tell you why it should be 100%. If the Knicks are doing their damn job, this guy is over here going, hey, it's bad in Milwaukee, I'm not staying. And then he could say whatever interviews he wants to say about longevity, I want to win, whatever he wants to say. He could say whatever you do, you're out. you're out because you know Milwaukee's going to do anything to keep you. And let's just keep it a buck. They can't keep you because they cannot bring in equal talent. It's almost where he might be in a worse situation than Embiid is in Philadelphia because people are going to want to still play in Philadelphia at some point. Nobody's going to Milwaukee. You're not recruiting another star to go to Milwaukee in free agency. This is not going to happen. What is Milwaukee known for? Cheese. You know, how many? He didn't have any brothers coming to eat cheese. So let's go keep it a buck. Now it was a Philly
Beer.
cheesesteak. Philly cheesesteak. You know, we brothers then got more sophisticated. They drinking champagne, got their own wine country. We ain't even going for the beer anymore. I'm just trying to tell you that Milwaukee is worse than Philly situation because they cannot reboot around Giannis
And they
because
don't,
yeah,
just to add to it, they don't have a youngster like Maxey either, right? So they don't even have a guy.
no,
Right.
Drew is saying he's done in 2 years. Middleton, we know he's just not that dude right now. He's probably a third player on a great championship team. He's not the second dude anymore, in my belief. So now you're going to what? Brook Lopez? You think you're going to get Brook Lopez to come and resurrect himself? That's not going to happen. So, you know, Pat Connaughton might be your next best young talent. Look, they're not going anywhere. He knows they're not going anywhere. So he's just kind of putting it out there that he's holding on to the loyal diatribe he's telling people, in which he's forthcoming. He wants to win. He said that he's giving Milwaukee everything that he could give them. He's delivered a title. He's been the best player on several occasions and won MVP. So it's not, he doesn't owe Milwaukee anything at this point. No. You know, he re-signed back when guys would have never probably re-signed back in Milwaukee. So he's had his run. He's out of there. So when I say 100% of the Knicks, what the hell are you holding all these assets for? What are you holding all these assets for? The whole time you've been building your cap space to fit in, to grab that dude, that guy. You have all these picks that are just going to sit there and lose value, as I've said for the longest time. You got guys that are probably never going to help you win a title. They're going to make you be a competitive team, but not a title. If you're going to back up the U-Haul truck and dump all your players in, you dump them for Antetokounmpo. Because who else are you going to do it for? You can't do it for Embiid. Is not the answer. I don't believe in dumping all your assets for Embiid. He'll be injured in the first week. The first week he's going to be injured. But you put the Freak next to Brunson, and even if you got to gut the team of all your young talent, you're gonna have a hell of, you're gonna knock somebody. You know, you're going to punch somebody in the gut to get to the finals. Because I think those two alone can be a headache for any team to have to guard in a 7-game series. You may need to hold on to someone like a Quentin Grimes. I'm just keeping – who would want to face Jalen Brunson and Giannis in the playoffs? I want to see the teams that raise their hands and says, oh, I want a piece of that. I want a piece of that guy. If they're both healthy – and they're running pick and rolls and doing whatever the hell they want to on the floor, you know, you just got to basically build enough talent to have some depth on the bench to back up those guys. I think you got you put Josh Hart. If you can keep Dante DiVincenzo, let's be realistic. You can keep Dante DiVincenzo. You can keep Josh Hart. You can keep Quentin Grimes. Say you have to give up. You're going to give up Julius. Julius got to go. They can't play together. You got Mitch. You got to let him go. There's no need to play a center at that point. So IQ, if he's still here, let him go. You can gut that team and have just those utility players around. Because that's all he had in Milwaukee. It wasn't like Milwaukee had like 3 big stars. They had him and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday brought on afterwards. So if you got
they're all stars, though.
They're all all-stars. Well, that's true too.
Those are nice players.
They're nice players. But Brunson is an all-star. Should have been an all-star.
Yeah.
You know, the question is, will the Knicks have a third piece that could be an all-star talent level? That's really what it comes down to. But the Knicks, you're backing up your whole truck and dumping that crap in Milwaukee's backyard with Aaron Rodgers at this point. Take him back.
You had to say that, huh?
When you were talking about Embiid, I was thinking of Aaron Rodgers,
I was
like
thinking,
Embiid come and play
yeah,
in one game and busting
that would
his
be us.
Achilles
That
up.
would be us. That would be us. And we
Really,
don't.
guys?
But you know what? Giannis is the kind of guy who he's durable. I mean, you're not worried about him. You're not worried about him crashing and burning in New York. That's not going to happen.
Well, he has 2 years left on his contract, and then he has the player option, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean they're definitely gonna want to move him beforehand because they're gonna need is assets. If you're getting rid of him, you're rebuilding, right? It's a complete rebuild. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it pans out. I agree with you, Ty. I think he's gone. I don't know where he's gonna go, but I think he's just preparing the city because, like I said, he's a good guy. He doesn't want to be a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's just preparing them for he's saying the right words, but I think deep down he knows that they're not going to be able to do that and to build around him unless they pull a rabbit out of the hat and are able to move some of these guys for assets and they hit on some draft picks that they have. I just don't know. But yeah, they're headed towards the precipice or the end of their window. I think they have this season, definitely, obviously, they have a shot. As long as he's healthy and on the court, I always think they're going to end up in the top 2 seeds in the East, barring, like I said, barring injury. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out within the next few years. But he is putting it on notice, and you guys both are right. What are you going to do? We have all these picks. We've been storing them to make a move like this. It's there now, right? It's time. And yeah, they have tradable players too with contracts that match up. It definitely.
If they don't,
why are you laughing? Hold on, why is he laughing?
This is the first time I've noticed his MetLife groundskeeper tie.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, somebody's got to fix that situation over in Jersey. Damn it!
That's clever.
But to me, Eric knows I said this before when Jalen Brunson, before the Knicks got him. I said, if the Knicks can't nab Jalen Brunson, they all need to be fired. That was the easiest acquisition they should have ever. That should have been. That's no work. That's why they got probably.
All they had to do was hire his dad.
Interference, because that was a done deal. If you can't nail Jalen Brunson, you need to be. The whole front office needs to be fired. I'm going to step it up in this situation as well. You have 3 guys now that Mitchell's not going to stay in Cleveland. Embiid is going to want eventually out of Philly. Yep. And Giannis is saying, hey, look, it's just a matter of time. If this front office can't pull one of those 3 guys, one of those guys that are supposedly superstars, then get them the hell out of here, because they'll never do anything. Because you bought Wes and you brought in Leon Rose for these moves. You didn't bring him in for Dante. You didn't bring him in for Jalen Brunson. You didn't bring him for the late draft. Well, you didn't really do that because what's his name? Perrin does the drafting. So he figured out how to fill your team with affordable roster players that are very good, high-end professionals. The Knicks got a ton of those. So everybody right now that's done their damn job on the Knicks, outside of two entities, the coach and the front office, were getting a start. So when you got those 2 things going on, and the coaches, let me take that back. Tom Thibodeau did establish an identity in the culture. I'm not going to say he hasn't done a full job. I just think he has a ceiling as a coach. That's what I should say more so. So, but the front office, Wes and Leon Rose, have crapped the bed with acquisitions, with between trading players and getting free agencies. They've done a hitty job. You can put the S in front of it. They did a hitty job in a lot of these instances with as far as moving and what we call asset management. They've done a hitty job with that. And Emmanuel quickly may put an exclamation point on that as well. But you have all these assets. Brock Ollie, he's gained you all these assets. So everybody's done their job. Your job is to get a star in New York. Mm-hmm. And if you can't nab one of these 3, and preferably it should be Giannis, because he's already telling you he wants out, so you got to at least have a 1-year plan in place where you're back channeling, figuring out how to get this guy to hell in here and assure him that you're about winning. that you're here to win. You tell me what you need to do. You want buttholes in here? You want Kid in here by the time you get here? Let me know, because we're going to make those moves to get you the guy you want in here. Because Kid would be great here. He loved Jason Kidd. And Brunson played great on the Kid. If that's what he wants, I'd give him whatever the hell he wants. I want to know what it takes to get you here. And Tom Thibodeau would be fired. Tom, sorry, I'll move you up to the upper room of the front office, but we can get a star in his prime. You do whatever it takes. If we can't get him, fire them.
This is going to be tips last year. So are we all aligned with the priorities here? Giannis, the one that we want the most, Embiid, the one we want the least, Mitchell in the middle of the pack as far as those three?
I would probably take Donovan Mitchell in the middle because
that's what he said.
And Embiid, because I mean,
I don't want no part of Embiid.
I don't trust fat kids around Kate because I'm one of the fat kids. I love Kate. So
based on talent, I honestly would want Embiid before all of them. I think he's the best college player.
I agree.
He's a bad man, but
I agree. Based on
risk.
Yeah, exactly. The risk not only because of his problems staying in shape or getting in shape, but because he's had foot problems in the past, and those don't, like we all know,
30.
They don't get better as you get older.
No, that's the thing. He's 30. I think people think he's so young, but he's 30. And I know. Yeah, you're younger than me, dog. But I'm just saying, like in basketball, you got another 4 years maybe, and you've got bad feet. Anybody who has bad feet,
got a bad back.
There is nothing cute about bad feet. So,
this is
that's not good. Yeah, Giannis and Donovan Mitchell. I don't think that he's ever. I just think that he's a great talent. Would he come on the Knicks and probably be maybe the best player on the Knicks? Yeah, probably. But I don't want him to be my best player.
To get 26, 28 shots.
Yeah, I don't want him to be my best player. I want him to be a second best player if need be. I want him to have to take a seat back. Because it's just something about him. I don't buy it all together, the package.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I mean, there are times he disappears, and I mean, we saw it in the playoffs. I thought there were games where he didn't his stamp on the floor.
He pulled a Harden and he pulled like a Harden, in my opinion, at one point.
I love the kid. I wanted to draft him, so I'm not.
But look at the effect he's had on that Cleveland team and all of those young players that are watching him put up 26, 28 shots a game. I don't know. He's a volume scorer. He is. He needs the ball. He needs. It was the same thing in Utah.
He's not a leader either. You watch him try to talk to the players to like galvanize them, and he got no reaction out of them.
Yeah,
and that dynamic. I mean, Cleveland the year prior to getting him was a very competitive team.
Yeah.
They were that Brooklyn Nets type team that Kenny had, that you were like, whoa, man, they need one. If they get that one player, that can really change the dynamic of that franchise to push them forward. And much like they did Brooklyn did with getting Kyrie, and the culture got ruined with him. I don't think it's KD's. It's clearly Kyrie ruined the culture over there. But I'm saying you got that, and you just compounded by getting James Harden. That's the same thing I feel like with Cleveland. They got Mitchell thinking that, we stole the best talent out of a trade, but he's not that dude though.
I still go back to the fact that having Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen in the shadows of him, and that is not good for that team.
No,
he is not fitting into that team. He stepped in and it was all about him, I think, with that team. That was not a good move for Cleveland in some ways.
Yeah.
They had good young talent. Evan Mobley is a better talent, I think, than Donovan Mitchell is in some ways.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know.
And they took Laurie. They should have kept Laurie. They look how he balled out in Utah. They should have kept him on the team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
let him figure it out because
he looks legit now.
I mean, you know what? I mean, they may start ponying up, believing that Mitchell had to give them some indication that he's not re-signing there at some point.
Yeah.
That might be a trade you see in New York. That might happen. I mean,
think
you might see a Julius Randle get traded if he has a bad season again that fails out. He might end up in Cleveland himself. You never know. That would be a trade. I mean, it'd be a weird trade, but I think that would be something you might see that dynamic happen. You never know. I mean, I would
if Jared
in Cleveland than Donovan Mitchell would.
Yeah, the thing, like we talk about Cleveland as being a place nobody wants to go to. So when you have a chance to get someone like Donovan Mitchell, I think they feel like they need to make that move, even though they were, like you guys said, building a core themselves of young talent on a similar trajectory that would have probably gotten them to the place they're headed anyway. Like, I think if you let Garland and Mobley and Allen and that team, and like you said, they had Markkanen, if they let those guys kind of develop together, they probably could have gotten to the place where this team with Mitchell would get them to.
Yeah, they could have got beat by the Knicks in the first round. That's what they could have gotten.
Well, no, I just mean.
No, but I'm being honest. They got beat in the first round like they didn't have Donovan Mitchell. I'm being funny, but I'm telling the truth in this instance. It's like you got that guy to beat the Knicks, and with him you lost like you would have lost if he wasn't here. So it's like, why did you bring him in then? I mean, to me, it was because they trade him off way before he's due to be a free agent.
They might have won. That's the thing.
They might have. You're right. They might have won.
Him and Garland together, they replicate each other, right? Like they both move the ball. Garland's a little bit better, more of a point guard, but still he's a scorer. He likes to put up shots. He likes to score points. He's not as athletic, but you would have had that dynamic without adding Mitchell, and then you add another guy who does the same thing. So, man, we'll see what happens going down this road. It's good to be in the conversation. I'm always afraid that like this happens so many times. We think we're getting somebody, and then we get nobody.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But as we know as well, even when we're not getting guys, the Knicks are always mentioned as a possible destination by guys. Anyway, so it's all going to come to a head soon, definitely. But what's coming to a head is we're wrapping up this show. So let's all plug some stuff, talk about our socials. Joe, we need to get you on some platforms, man. I need to put you on a platform, get you out there. What about just try Threads? Try Threads first. It's a little bit more tame than X now. I still call it Twitter. It's a little bit more tame.
I'm gonna have to get an X account and never use it.
You living a dangerous life, bro. Don't go. That is the.
Come see. I like Eric's idea. Come see me on OnlyFans. $6.99 a month.
Yeah, OnlyFans. Oh boy. That's a whole other conversation. That's a different show.
Yeah, man.
All right, so Ty, go ahead, man. Tell them where they could reach you and reach us and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, my new job is. Hold on, let me get it. It's this. No more Rodgers. We're gonna get that lawn straight over in Jersey. They should never put lawns in Jersey. Come on, we know Jersey sucks. But anyway, sorry for my Jersey people. You can scribble. That's on the X. Gonna give it to you. Shout out to DMX. You could also catch me on our All Knicked Up fan page where we are waiting for smoke. Love smoke. Give us all the smoke.
Yes, Ty posts more articles than we do.
So Craig talking about. I'm looking at Craig's like.
he drives the conversation. So
definitely.
And yes, so we'll definitely give that Ty's main job. On Twitter, it's me. But Joe, go ahead and tell a little bit where they can talk to you via our page. Go ahead, tell them.
Okay. You can find me on the fan page, and I promise once the season starts, I will post a lot more. I just don't have a lot to talk about international basketball.
It's
Not my cup of tea.
It's a tough time of year to talk about basketball. I mean, this gave us some actual basketball to talk about, which was nice this year. But most of the time, you're like, what the hell am I gonna talk? You're scraping through articles. It's crazy.
But it's funny though. The Knicks stay relevant at some point. I don't know. We're such a lightning rod because they talked about the other day was the interview with Tyson Chandler. We can maybe address that next week. But
oh yeah, that was interesting.
Chandler, along with Steven Jack, about that the last time we were really in the playoffs and made it to the second round. So we can discuss that maybe next week as a topic. But they love the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Better or worse.
Like Joe just said, the Knicks get clicks, right? They definitely
certainly do.
Watch. So if you guys want to catch up with me, I'm over here in my socials. You can see at Finally33. Oh, this one. At Finally33 is my personal account. At all_Nick_up is the show account. I talk most of the Knicks and basketball stuff on that account, but my Finally33 is you guys. That's me. So if you guys want to get at me about anything, you can hit me up there. I also do a show called Straight Outta Gotham. Shirt, but this is some merch from the show. So if you guys want, you can go to TeePublic and get a Straight Outta Gotham shirt. Wink, wink. I'm plugging stuff there. Definitely go over there and check it out. But Straight Outta Gotham is a fandom pop culture podcast I do with my buddy Pete Vera. We talk about movies, comic books, video games, TV shows, everything going on in pop culture. With the strikes, it's been rough. It's been a rough summer to try and get news, but we're going to keep stuff out there. There's some big releases coming out, the Marvels. And
you guys should talk about Ty's theory, Batman theory.
And
that's kind of fascinating.
And someone posted, I tagged you, Joe.
Yeah, I saw that.
And someone brought it up. I'm like, oh, damn, someone thought the same thing I thought. But
yeah, that's kind of fascinating.
Okay. I don't know if I saw it. Did you tag me in? If you did, I'm sorry.
It's on my Facebook page, but he mentioned it in the previous post, and I was like, that's really interesting. And then he posted that afterwards.
Somebody said the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I'll check it out.
But just check it out. It's on mine, or you can find it.
All right, I'll check it out. So yeah, guys, if you guys want to find, talk to me directly on Twitter right there. And that's Ty and Joe mentioned the fan page. We have the All Knicked Up fan page on Facebook. We have a fan page. We also have a show page. The show page is where the show is. I actually broadcast the show to. So if you guys are watching this on Facebook, this is where you're seeing it. Excuse me, I can't speak. So check it out. Of course, check out everything. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you could always reach out to any one of us. And if you have any ideas, stuff you want us to discuss, you can give us ideas as well. We definitely like taking recommendations from our fans. But now it's time to say goodnight. So unless you guys have anything, I'm going to shut us down. No, we're good? All right. So for Ty and Joe, I'm Eric. You're watching All Knicked Up. See you next time.